The first thing my supervisor told me was, "Whatever you hear after midnight, don't leave the security office unless you absolutely have to." I laughed. I honestly thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. Instead, he slid a ring of old brass keys across the desk and looked me straight in the eyes. "I'm serious." That should have been enough for me to walk away. Instead, I signed the paperwork. At the time, I desperately needed the money. My name is Ryan. I was 29 years old, recently divorced, and behind on rent. The night security position paid almost twice what my previous warehouse job had. The hours were terrible, 8 at night until 6 in the morning, but the work sounded easy. Sit in a security room, watch cameras, walk the building every 2 hours, lock the doors before sunrise. That was it. The building used to belong to a software company that had gone bankrupt. Most of the offices were empty, only 2 floors were still rented. During the day, cleaners and a few small businesses used those floors. At night, I was completely alone. Or, at least that's what everyone told me. My first shift started on a rainy Monday. The parking lot looked abandoned. Only my old pickup truck sat beneath one flickering streetlight. The 6-story building stood in complete darkness except for a few emergency lights glowing behind the glass entrance. The rain made the entire place look abandoned. Inside, everything smelled like old carpet and dust. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My supervisor, Frank, walked me through the building. He was around 60, gray beard, quiet, the kind of man who looked like he'd seen too much. He explained the cameras, the alarm system, the emergency exits. Then he stopped in front of a steel door at the end of the hallway. "This goes to the basement." He held up one of the keys. "Never open it." I frowned. "What if the alarm goes off?" "It won't." "And if it does?" Frank looked down the hallway before answering. "Call the police." "What if someone needs help?" He hesitated, then quietly said, "If someone is down there after midnight, they're not supposed to be." A strange feeling settled in my stomach. Still, I assumed he was trying to scare the new guy. By 8:30, Frank left. His truck disappeared through the front gate. The building became silent, completely silent. I sat in the security office watching 16 security cameras, parking lot, main entrance, hallways, elevators, stairwells. Everything looked normal at exactly 10 o'clock. I made my first patrol. The flashlight felt heavier than it should have. Every hallway looked identical. Rows of empty offices, closed doors, dark windows. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. When I returned to the security office, I noticed something strange. Camera 12, which monitored the 5th floor hallway, was filled with static. Just that one camera. The others worked perfectly. I tapped the monitor. The picture returned. An empty hallway. I shrugged. Old equipment, nothing unusual. Around 11:30, I made coffee. The rain outside had become heavier. Thunder shook the windows. Then, the radio crackled. I picked it up. Only static. I was about to put it back when a voice whispered through the speaker. "Hello?" I froze. "Who's there?" No answer, only static. A second later. "Can you hear me?" The voice sounded weak. Almost frightened, I grabbed the radio. "This is security. Identify yourself." Silence, then, "Please don't let him find me." The transmission cut off. Every hair on my arms stood up. I immediately checked every camera. Nothing, no movement, no people, no alarms. I told myself another security company was probably using the same radio frequency. That had to be it, right? At midnight. The hallway lights automatically dimmed. The entire building became darker. Almost every camera now showed long shadows stretching across the floors. Then, camera 12 went black again. Not static this time, just black. A message appeared on the screen. Signal lost. I reached for the maintenance log. No mention of camera problems. I sighed. There was only one way to fix it. I had to go to the 5th floor. As the elevator doors opened, I realized something. The hallway lights were already on. Someone had turned them on before I got there. The 5th floor was supposed to be empty. Every office had been cleared months before the company shut down. Yet the hallway lights were already on. I was certain they had been off only a minute earlier. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic ding. I stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder than the rest of the building. Not freezing, just unnaturally cold. My flashlight swept across rows of closed office doors. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. I walked toward the camera mounted above the ceiling corner. It pointed down the entire hallway. The small green power light was off. "Great," I muttered. I grabbed my radio. "Maintenance issue on camera 12. "Only static," answered. Then a loud bang echoed somewhere behind me. I spun around. One of the office doors had slammed shut. My heart nearly stopped. I stood perfectly still. The hallway became silent again. Probably the wind, I told myself. Old buildings shift all the time. Still, I walked toward the door. Room 517. The plaque had already been removed, leaving only 2 empty screw holes. The door was slightly open, just enough to see darkness inside. I pushed it wider. The beam of my flashlight slowly crossed the room. Empty desks, broken office chairs, dust everywhere. No one. As I turned to leave, I noticed something on the floor. Fresh footprints. Not dusty footprints, clean ones. Someone had walked through the room recently. The prints led toward the back wall. Then simply stopped. There was nowhere else to go. No second door, no window, nothing. I crouched down. The dust around the footprints was untouched. It looked as if whoever made them had simply vanished. A strange feeling crawled up my spine. I quickly left the room. Back in the hallway, camera 12 was working again. The green light blinked normally. I hadn't touched it. I stared at it for several seconds, then headed back toward the elevator. Halfway there, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. "Hello?" Silence, then a man's voice, calm, slow. "You're early." I frowned. "What?" "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" Click. The call ended. I immediately dialed the number back. The recording said, "The number you have dialed is not in service." I stood frozen. Someone had just called me from a number that didn't exist. Trying to stay calm, I hurried into the elevator. As the doors closed, I looked one last time down the hallway. A figure stood at the far end, too far away to make out a face. Dark clothes, tall, completely motionless. I pressed the lobby button over and over. The doors finally closed. As the elevator descended, my radio crackled. Then came the same frightened voice. "Please." A pause. "Me, he knows you're here now." The transmission cut out. When I reached the security office, I checked every camera. 5th floor, empty. The hallway where I'd seen the figure was completely deserted. No one. I replayed the recording from camera 12. The hallway stayed empty the entire time. No person, no shadow, nothing. According to the cameras, I had been standing there, completely alone. I leaned back in my chair, trying to convince myself that stress was making me imagine things. Then another monitor flashed. Motion detected basement entrance. I looked at the screen. The steel basement door, the one Frank had warned me never to open, was slowly swinging inward, as if someone had just gone inside. I kept staring at the monitor. The basement door stood open. No alarm, no warning, just an empty doorway leading into darkness. Frank's words echoed in my head. If someone is down there after midnight, they're not supposed to be. I grabbed my flashlight, then stopped. No. He had specifically told me not to go down there. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the police. The dispatcher listened carefully while I explained everything. The strange radio calls, the open basement door, the unknown man on the 5th floor. She promised officers were on the way. About 10 minutes. Stay in the security office, she said. Do not investigate. I understand. I hung up. For the first time that night, I locked the security office door. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Every camera looked perfectly normal. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then, camera 4 blinked. The main lobby. Someone walked through the front entrance. I jumped out of my chair. A man, tall, dark jacket, baseball cap. He wasn't forcing the doors. He simply opened them, as if he already had a key. He walked slowly across the lobby, never looking at the cameras, never hurrying. He disappeared into the hallway leading toward the elevators. I immediately called the dispatcher again. He's inside. Officers are less than 3 minutes away. Stay where you are. Then, every monitor went black. One after another, parking lot, lobby, hallways, elevators, everything. Only one screen stayed on. Camera 1, the security office hallway. I watched the empty corridor. Then, a figure stepped into view. The same man. He stopped outside my door, completely still. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. He slowly tilted his head, as if listening. Then, 3 quiet knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Exactly 3. Not loud, almost polite. I didn't move. The dispatcher was still on the phone. Sir, I whispered, he's outside. The doorknob turned. Very slowly, once, twice, then harder. The lock held. He stopped moving for several seconds. Nothing happened. Then I heard footsteps walking away. I looked at the monitor. The hallway was empty again. He was gone at that exact moment. Red and blue lights flashed across the parking lot. Police, 3 patrol cars. Relief rushed over me. Officers entered the building with weapons drawn. I unlocked the office door. Within minutes, they searched every floor. Nothing. No suspect. No signs of forced entry. Then one officer called everyone to the basement. I followed them. The steel door stood open. Inside, the basement wasn't empty. It had been converted into a place someone had been living. There was a mattress, bottled water, canned food, flashlights, batteries, maps of the building, and hundreds of printed photographs. Every security guard who had worked there during the past 5 years. Each picture had notes written beside it. Arrival time, break schedule, patrol route, car model. One folder sat by itself. My name was written across the front. Inside were photographs of me getting coffee, checking cameras, walking the 5th floor, even arriving for my very first shift. Someone had been watching me. From the moment I accepted the job, police searched for weeks. The man was never identified. Investigators believed he had been secretly living beneath the building for years, using forgotten maintenance tunnels connected to the old storm drains. They also discovered something Frank had never told anyone. 3 previous night guards had resigned without notice. One simply disappeared. His body was never found. The building was permanently closed 2 months later. It was demolished the following spring. People often ask why I never work night security anymore. I usually tell them I found a better job. It's easier than telling the truth. Because sometimes, late at night, when my phone rings from an unknown number, I still answer. No one ever speaks. I only hear slow breathing, followed by 3 quiet taps. Tap, tap, tap.